Hello, Dragon Ball Super family. I'm Legends Michael Kerrick, and I'm here representing Team Foe with another deck profile for y'all. This weekend, I went to Arlington, Texas to compete in the little Zenkai Cup. Ended up going X2, placing 10th. Not my best performance for sure. I ended up losing against SS4 Vegeta. I decked myself out. He played very well defensively, and I played against SS4 Gogeta for my other loss. This Goku Vegeta deck. I ended up making a pretty big error to lose third the game after I had it saved, for sure. But without further ado, there's two more Zenkai Cups. This is definitely a deck I would strongly suggest looking into for the Zenkai Cups, if not Nationals. It's a very strong deck, and if you like aggro, which I definitely do not, I strongly suggest you give this a whirl. Anyway, so off we go. We got this Son Goku and Vegeta GT Leader, which came out in the set 18 that just got released. On the front side, once per turn during either player's turn, when a card is used in a combo, however, you get that to happen, you can look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, and then add up to one red Saiyan card or one red unison with a specified cost of 2 amongst them to your hand, and then bottom deck the other 2. Fun fact, any top 3s in this game are bottom decks, whereas any top 5s are shuffles for the most part. It's also got this really cool permanent on both sides where you can use mono red rest mode Saiyan cards in combo. Its awakens is very simple. If you have a Vegeta GT and then a Son Goku GT in your Z energy, you can go down to 6 life, untap 1, draw 1, and flip to the other side. I'm sure there's an alternative awaken, but I've never used it. On the backside, you become their adult forms. You keep that permanent where you can combo with Saiyan Rest Mode cards, red ones specifically. Now you got this permanent where Gogeta GT cards you control can attack your opponent's active mode battle cards. That's pretty cool. When one of your Gogeta GT cards attacks your opponent's battle cards, your opponent skips their defense step. So that's actually really relevant when you go into your turn 4 and 5 bomb plays. And you got this auto, which is almost never relevant, where once per turn when you activate Union Fusion, this card becomes Gogeta GT. It's got a little flavor text. And then finally, the second auto. It's kind of like an upgraded version of your standard attack auto, but it's when this card attacks, draw a card, then play up to 1 red Saiyan card with an energy cost of 1 from your hand in rest mode. So, I'll be going over how we utilize this leader as we go through the deck, but I'm just going to go fly through the deck. I'm sure some of you have seen the PPG version of this deck, piloted by Yuha. This is a more aggro-tuned version of that deck. So, just like Yuha's version and the previous version, we have 4 copies of Saiyan Scions. There's like 9 out of 10 things about this card are great. The only thing I don't like about this card is that it's a mono black card. So that does come up sometimes. You can't really charge it very frequently unless it's like turn 5 or 6, and you can charge one and use that extra energy to play the other one from your hand or something. But this card's like by far the card you want a mulligan for. It's a great turn 0 as long as you're not going into the mirror or King Piccolo. It's a great turn 1 into everything. It becomes 1 energy, 3 attacks, 2 of which are 10k, 1 of which is a 15k. That's just without comboing. This is just a much more efficient unison than to play the 2-drop unison. Now that the 2-drop unison can't play a crown from your hand, it becomes a lot worse and just becomes a negative tempo play, committing 2 energy from it. Whereas this card only commits 1 energy to your play, and you can actually use that to dome the opponent's unison between this and your leader. It's actually a very efficient way to clear a unison, especially when both hands are like 15 card plus. Additionally, it also becomes 2 0 for 5k combo power cards if you want to use it like that. But more importantly, with your leader, you can play the Scions, attack with the Scions, play the 2 Vegeta, which is our only targets, and then attack with the Vegeta, attack with the second Vegeta, combo with the first Vegeta. Now that gives you the Vegeta GT for your leader. And you get to use your top 3, and then you could choose to combo the other Vegeta on the next attack or wait for your opponent's turn. If you leave the second Vegeta to your opponent's turn, it either becomes a negate or it becomes a free search off your leader's auto, so that's pretty cool. Extra copies of the card, not too bad. Actually, you kind of want to play towards seeing extra copies. This deck is easily able to combo these guys up to 15 for the first 2 attacks, so that's not too bad either. Like I said, worst case scenario, they equal 10k combo power for 1 energy if you do see them later. So yeah, these are the only 4 targets we play for this card. It's just Vegeta GT. If Bandai released a Son Goku GT vanilla 1-drop, then we'd probably incorporate that too. Moving on into the extra Vegeta GT targets, so Not including the 1-drop GT targets, we play 11 Vegeta targets. If you include the 1-drop Vegeta GT targets, then we play 15. If you do choose to play this deck, make sure you track how many are left in your deck so that you don't just Z energy the first 2 that you get and you just make the rest of your Scions useless. Just keep an eye on that. Play 4 copies of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Searcher, SS4 Vegeta Searching for Rivals. This is the first card in the game that's made me concerned that this might become like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it just strictly just looks through your deck and finds a card. Finds any Son Goku GT. We play 4 copies because it gives us access to our bean. But more importantly, it lets us reshuffle the deck. So a lot of times on your front side of your leader, you're going to bottom deck some super important cards like Scions or Super Combos. This will let you get a shuffle off so you have a chance to see them again. Play 3 copies of the far inferior pair, or part of the pair, SS4 Vegeta Rivalry United. It's a 20k crit with deflect. Everything in this game has deflect now. I don't know why counterplays exist. But it's 20k deflect critical. Auto, when this card is played, you choose one of your opponent's battle card and neg it by 15k. That's actually sometimes relevant, especially in the Red Sin, or the 1-star ball matchup, as people call it. When they go in with their Nova or Ices to develop pressure and tempo, you can actually bait them into attacking with it, and then just minus 15 on it, and they lose their whole tempo play on you. It's actually really cool. The crit function, not that great, and then since it doesn't draw a card, I actually hate playing this one. But for the rest of it, you can choose when you do choose a combo from the field, you can pay an extra energy, give your leader crit, another 5k. I've never used that effect. I don't know why I ever would. And then the way to play it instead of paying 4 is you activate battle limit 1. If you do have a Son Goku GT in your combo area, you can choose to play this for 1 from your hand as long as you have 2 or more energy. Not that great of a card, definitely just there as a Vegeta name and as an alternative way to deal with other aggro decks. 8 copies of this Pot of Greed card, probably the most ridiculous card in this deck. These cards reduce themselves to 1 while they're in your hand. When they're played, they're automatically switched to rest mode, and then you draw a card. And then if you combo them from the battle area, you also draw a card. So you can imagine with your leader effect, you can attack the leader, draw a card, play one of these clowns, draw a card when they're played, and then combo them off to draw another card. So your leader pretty much does C3 new cards, which is kind of absurd. Of course, there are also fusion targets. Make sure you're keeping track of how many Vegetas and Gokus you've used throughout the game to decide which ones you want to use when you combo. It's kind of just like a secondary part to playing the deck. Not too much can be said about these. They're kind of the heart and blood. As you see, as you can guess, we've drifted into our Goku targets for the deck. So next we play 3 copies of this Bean Goku. This SS4 Son Goku Digging Deep. It's a 0 for 0 combo, which is actually super relevant early game versus slower decks. But if your life is at 4 or less, when you combo with this card limit 1, you can increase the power of one of your red cards by 5k for the entire turn, effectively turning into a red bean that costs 0. Which is pretty cool, of course, since it's a Son Goku GT with 20k power, we can actually search it with that Searcher Vegeta. I don't know where it went. This guy. So that's pretty cool. If you're playing against slower decks, you can actually just search this card early because you're not going to need to resolve 3 of them versus slow decks. But you can use it early to cycle out of your opponent's first attack and then also take the life, which is actually super relevant. So you can keep the consistency of your deck going. We play 1 copy of Unbreakable Super Saiyan Son Goku. This is really just a tech to beat 1-star ball. And kind of give you a leg up in the mirror, since the mirror is often defined by how many 10Ks you can combo into your opponent's Gogeta GT. 4 or 8 drop. But versus Sin, you can search this out with, of course, this Searcher card, and then combo out of their 20k crit, or give you a leg up comboing out of their 30k crit triple striker that they use in the early game. And once you do that, you should be pretty tempoed ahead. 4 copies of this SS4 Son Goku Rivalry United. He's definitely the better one of the 2 combative fusion targets, mainly because he just draws a card. Whether they have double striker crit, not that relevant to me as a non-aggro player, but the double strike does come up, lets you kill opposing unisons really quickly, so that's really cool. Being a 20k, he forces Boo to actually use the -1 on him or lose 2 markers for free. You can also, just like the Vegeta, you can combo him from the battle area and pay an extra energy to give 5k and an additional effect. For his additional effect, it gives your leader double strike. That's actually super relevant. Came up a couple times. And then, of course, for his play effect, as long as you have a Vegeta GT in the combo area, you can play this card for 1 mana. And you need, of course, 2 or more energy to be able to do that. Of course, this is a Vegeta GT target, so when you're done using this during your early game combo, on the second one, you can combo it off with the leader, and then play this card to push your aggressive stance further. There's one game in this event where I put my opponent on 1, on my first turn attacking, and then finished him off on the next turn. So there's a lot of aggro that comes out of this deck, which is pretty cool. Big boss man of the deck. I elected to only go with 3 because this was a no side event. In a pre-side or a best of 3 event, I probably would play the full suite of 4. And honestly, if I decide to play this deck again this weekend or during the PPG event, probably would play 4. It's not that I was missing it, it's just I would have loved to see a second or a third one in matches where the extra copies mattered. But this is obviously the beast of the deck. Just like everything else that's relevant in this deck, it has Deflect, it's got Triple Strike, and Blocker. You fuse it for 4 energy and you draw a card on fusion. Of course, this card has a ridiculous permanent where as long as this card is in battle, it is unaffected. Well, this card is always unaffected by your opponent's non-GT, Gogeta GT skills. And then if this card's in battle, your opponent can't activate any non-super combo skills. So your opponent can't even activate negates in response to this card's attack. Your opponent's autos that trigger due to the battle, such as like Zarbon or like Go Tanks, Grim Reaper Justice, those don't work if this card killed it. Obviously, due to your opponent's or your leader's permanent, this card can attack your opponent's battle cards in active mode, which is super relevant because it has this auto. Where when an opponent's battle card is KO'd by this card, it's attack, or at the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode. So that's super cool. Pretty much comes down and clears the board of anything that is not 40k or higher than 35,001 power, and then domes your opponent for a triple strike, or your opponent has to give you a bunch of super combos and or cards in hand. So that's pretty cool. And then of course, if your leader is not a Z leader or whatever, this thing at the start of your charge phase, this thing disappears. So that's kind of that's like its balance form, but like the fact that you can spend 4 mana, clear a board, and then it stands up at the end of the turn to become a blocker for you next turn, kind of hard to deal with for a lot of decks. So that's pretty cool. For the super combo, a lot of people decided to play Raditz. I opted to play Beerus, whatever this thing is, the red-yellow Beerus. So we went with this. We decided to go with this because we were finding that we were killing a lot of people at 5 or 6 life. And this game, I mean, that game versus Sin Shenron was evident of that. I put his life so low, I needed to make sure my super combos were alive right away. So that's super cool. Obviously, the downside is we are playing a couple black cards, or rather non-red cards, so this card can miss sometimes. It did matter. It missed once, so that does suck. But other than that, it is a little bit better than the Raditz in my opinion because of the fact that you can use it earlier. Also the fact that it, in the same regards that it can miss, it can also hit other copies of itself, making it a like 0 for 15 super combo effectively, and draws you a card. It does have worlds where it is pretty damn good. You can do whatever you want for your super combos. Honestly, you could do a 3-1 split, any combination of this and Raditz, or even the Vegeta's Mustache GT super combo works. I would strongly suggest trying the Beerus Motivated Destruction, though. For defense, I played 3 copies of Testing the Opposition and 2 copies of Violent Rays. The Violent Rays were a respect call for Vegito. This is post-nerf Violent Ray, but Red Vegito swings with too many 30ks and up with dual attack that stun us, so that's kind of a pain in the hind. Obviously, Violent Rays does nothing versus like Sin or versus the mirror match, especially in this sealed like no size Zenkai format. Violent Rays really only hit Vegito. This is actually ended up being a mistake because Vegito's actually kind of hard to put together for the Zenkai format, since you need to find 8 additionally 8 more Zenkai format cards to put in your Vegito deck, which is really hard because it is a set 2 deck. There actually were only like 2 or 3 Vegetas at the turn. I probably, going forward, playing this deck again, I probably wouldn't play the Violent Rays. I'd probably play a 4th Testing and maybe a 4th copy of that Gogeta 8-drop instead of these Violent Rays. The Testings, on the other hand, were actually godlike, so you can put yourself to 6 life when you awaken, and then you can use that extra energy to play the Z card over here that takes another life, so that your Testings immediately live versus Sin. That way you're not absorbing any triple strikes. And then versus the mirror, these Testings actually become a big deal because the biggest damage dealers in the mirror are the double strikes between the Goku and then the Vegeta Z battle card. So just having Testing to trade 1 life instead of 2 actually was super relevant. I definitely play a 4th Testing moving forward. Then we'll go into some of the tech choices I played. I played a copy of Pilaf because I didn't want to lose to that Goku SCR combo where you like ramps 4, Goku, play some 2-drop, and then Goku to take another time walk and some of that garbage. So I played a copy of Pilaf to prevent that. Ironically, it never came up because the only blue matchup I played, he played Hatch anyway. It also has a minor affliction to the 6-drop Goku that can be played for 4 from set 18. He just kept warping 5, so this card was actually terrible for the weekend. I probably wouldn't play this again. Not for this. I would definitely suggest it for Nat, so you don't run into some garbage or not garbage or some like janky Beerus combo where they like tap a or they ramp a bunch and then they take a second turn and you lose. I play 4 Crowns of Retribution for the same reason. I was just afraid of blue just coming out of nowhere and stalling me out. So in testing, I found that I was pretty favored into other red decks, and I was really only losing to blue decks on the draw while I was on the draw. So this was a good way to combat that, especially because they like to go to the opponent's turn with like a Boo 1-tap and then that Goku 1-tap. So this was a really cool way. It never came up. It's just because this weekend was all red. And then I played 2 overrounds. I played 1 copy SS4 Vegeta Fang Greening. I mean, of course, downside's another black card, making the Beerus Motivated Destruction a little worse. Making charging occasionally a little harder, although that never came up. Your 2 overround choices this format are really just this and then the Broly that came out in set 18. Right, the Broly, I chose to play this because this is just better into blue, right? The Broly's better for closing out games, arguably, since you can clear off like a testing the opposition blocker, but this can, versus blue, once again, you're trying to dwindle down the resources. This takes out the last resource and then goes for game. Also, this can be comboed. That matters in the mirror match since you need to give up 5 cards if you don't have any super combos in the Gogeta 8. And then, of course, Vegeta Light in the Dark. It's not much to be said. On turn 4, you want to be playing the Gogeta, so I know I've said that the Vegeta SCR is probably the best SCR in the game for red, but that just doesn't, it's not the case anymore. Now, a good argument can be made for this card since it lets you use your turn 4 play while still maintaining an SCR. The Quad Strike, 10k, the Bean is actually more relevant, like the double Bean effect is way more relevant than the Quad Strike. The Quad Strike just gets negated most of the time. I think once I went in with it, my opponent didn't have a negate, probably my first round versus the mirror. That just happened to be lucky, but more importantly, it lets you look at your opponent's hand and rip out any 35k or less. Pretty much anything that's not an SCR, but that's in a battle card form. So that's super relevant because it lets you rip out super combos, lets you check for Dirty Burst versus blue before you slam your Gogeta 8-drop on turn 4. Super relevant. It's also Red Saiyan, so your front side leader can look for it a couple times before you decide to awaken. Definitely a great deck. Very simple to pilot. I'm just not great with aggro. You guys know it. But would play it again if I was playing in another Zenkai Cup. So something to try. And definitely a very affordable deck. I mean, even the SCR is only like down to 170, I think, right now. Very affordable, tier 1 deck. Obviously very strong. Many ways to pilot it. If you like aggro and you like going fast and hard, this version is probably the way for you. Quickly going over the Z deck, there's not much to talk about. We have your Vegeta surmounting the impossible. This is to take yourself from 6 to 5 in some matches, especially in Sin. You think it's counterproductive because you're taking one of your own damage. But if the Sin's player is good, while you're at 6 life, they're going to try to triple strike crit you. So you want to take yourself down to 5 so you can allow for that testing the opposition play versus that triple strike crit. Otherwise, you can just like bean out of the next attack if you really need to. There's a lot more that you can do. So this card's good for that. This card came up a lot actually. It's just spending an energy to like cycle and see 2 cards, take one of your life, comes up a lot. This card's whatever. It sets your leader to 100k for defense, then you have to hope you win the next turn with like the 8-drop that remained on the field and your leader swing, and it may be your second overarm that you played. That card doesn't feel great. I mean, one of the best things about learning about or mastering this deck is knowing when to go into this and when not to go into this. Saving resources by going to this isn't that great if you're just gonna like not kill them on your next turn. So something to think about. 1 copy of this card, I think, like, never came up. Maybe it comes up versus blue occasionally, like if they, like, hatch-yak you and on your first attack and you have, like, 3 energy left, you just have nothing else to do. They're still above 4 life. You can, like, play this, pink them for a life, and then just pass turn because you literally have nothing else to do. This is a ridiculous card in red. When this card it like refunds its own Z energy as long as you have 5 or more Z energy when you play it, so that's kind of absurd. Versus a lot of decks, versus, like, blue and, like... Wolf Fang Fist, people are starting to tech in the garbage like unison version of this deck. You can activate main right away to outplay that. Same with like the Sword Final Hope Slash. You can just activate main right away. It lets you outplay those kind of cards. But yeah, the first time it attacks, both times it attacks rather, it combos from the drop of 5k, so one of the 5ks that you use to play this card from your Z energy. And then of course, it negs any battle card or unison by 15k for the turn. So it lets you set your opponent's like Boo unison to 5k for a turn. That's super relevant. It lets you clear 2 cards, it lets you deal with blockers. The card's kind of absurd. It's effectively a dual attack like triple strike. Or dual attack, 3 damage, remove 2 battle cards, generate 2 more Z energy, like go to your opponent's mother's house and ask them out. Like, it does so much. It's ridiculous. One of the cool things you can do if you somehow didn't get to awaken on your turn 2, or if you just happen to have a third card in your Z energy for turn 2, if you really want to spare, like say your opponent aggroed you really hard, right? Like you went first and they went first and they scioned you and suddenly like your health is like bleeding, but you have extra Z energy, you can actually just spend your turn 2 mana like generating this card from your Z deck, right? Attack with it. The first card that gets combo will trigger your leader's auto, so that's really convenient, and then you can just Z it and then awaken and do a bunch of your garbage. You still have an extra energy, and then it lets you clear your opponent's field that they generate, of course, since this card's ridiculous. I mean, for lack of other better red Z cards right now, this is just being played at 4. I think I've only ever maxed out at going to this card 3 times. Like 1 time on turn 3, maybe 2 more times on turn 4 or 5 if it came up, depending when I decide to play Gogeta. It comes up really often versus blue since like you can't go into Gogeta as often, the Gogeta 8 drop. Since they're playing Dirty Burst, so like you can crown blue, look for the Dirty Burst, and if they have the Dirty Burst or they respond with the Dirty Burst, you can just play this to generate just as much pressure. Obviously they can negate this pressure, but it's like a good alternative. But yeah, that's the entire deck. It's a good choice for Nats if you like aggro, if you like red. Obviously, red is very strong in this format. The nerfs did impact the deck, but as you've heard many people say, the nerfs to red really just impacted all the other red decks that aren't this. But I had a blast playing it. I don't know if I'd play it again just because I don't like aggro. Might try to come up with a more control version of the deck. I do kind of sad that I never got to play the blue-red version because that version was absurd. But yeah, Arlington was fun. Play TCG. They were a lot better from the last event they hosted. Got to see a bunch of my friends that are play out in Texas. Got to go out there and visit my girlfriend. So shout out to Arlington hosting events so that I can do that. That's super dope. Yeah, shout out to all my boys in Fort Walton. Shout out to Team PPG, of course. I mean, obviously. Yeah, if you ever want to talk shop or just like talk about deck ideas, definitely hit me up. I'm always trying to build new stuff and interact with the community. I'll catch you guys next time.